I think even from early in his career, Burnham has this sense that he's more than an architect and that he's more than a businessman.
He had a personality that was as big as the subject of cities as a whole.
By 1912, his firm has built some of the earliest and most celebrated skyscrapers in the world. But Burnham's greatest influence may not be what he built, but what he imagined. That ugly, crowded, chaotic cities could be made more efficient, beautiful, and green. Before the modern profession of city planning even existed, Burnham created plans for major cities in America and abroad.
That's part of his legacy in city planning, that you could take the city on as a design problem and do it.
Daniel Burnham was an architect that lived from 1846 to 1912 that revolutionized city planning and constructing skyscrapers. Burnham built some of the first skyscrapers in the world, directed construction of the 1893 World's Columbian Expedition that inspired the City Beautiful movement, and created the urban plans for Washington, D.C., Chicago, Cleveland, San Francisco, and Manila, all before the profession of urban planning existed. Burnham wanted to create beautiful cities, which included many green areas filled with trees and an efficiently run city. Burnham created over 500 buildings, those including icons such as the Reliance, Rookery, Marshall Fields, and Monadnock buildings in Chicago, the Flatiron Building in New York, the Merchants Exchange Building in San Francisco, and the Union Station in Washington, D.C. Burnham believed that an ideal city could be both beautiful and commercially efficient. He was an early advocate for parks and open space that emphasized community throughout the city.
Daniel Burnham was responsible for much of the construction of the Chicago Loop. The Burnham Plan, or 1909 Plan of Chicago, recommended an integrated series of projects including widened streets, parks, new railroad facilities, and civic buildings. Of these buildings included the Rookery, the Reliance, the Monadnock, Marshall Fields, and Carson Prairie Scott. These buildings are still standing today due to Burnham's use of iron and wind bracing systems. The Rookery building is a historic landmark in the Chicago Loop. It is finished in 1888 and is considered one of Burnham's masterpiece buildings. The Rookery stands 12 stories high and is considered the oldest standing high-rise in Chicago. It has a unique style with exterior, load-bearing walls and an interior steel frame, which provided a transition between accepted and new building techniques. The building received its name due to the excessive amounts of pigeons and crows which inhabited its exterior walls. Not only this, but also for the shady politicians which it often housed.
The Monadnock building construction began in 1891 by Burnham and Root, located on West Jackson Boulevard in the South Loop. It was the tallest commercial iron frame building and contained the first portal system of wind bracing in America. The building contains a north and south half, and Burnham and Root built the north half. When it was completed, it stood as the largest office building in the world. The success of the Monadnock was the building catalyst for further development in the Chicago Loop. The Reliance building was created after the Great Chicago Fire. In 1890, Burnham and Root were asked to construct the building. This building achieved many accomplishments, some including it being the first skyscraper to have large plate glass windows and to be a National Historic Landmark. The Reliance was one of the first skyscrapers to offer electricity and phone service in all of its offices. Architectural feats were achieved with this structure, those being the implements of terracotta cladding and superstructure, which are concrete poles stuck as much as 125 feet beneath the footing of the building.
Come one, come all to the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, the fair that defined the future of Chicago. industrialization, electricity, the world's first Ferris wheel, a Liberty Bell made out of citrus fruits. Chicago was the second largest city in the United States in 1892 and beat out some major competitors for hosting the fair that year. The Great Chicago Fire had destroyed a large portion of the city 22 years earlier, and the American Civil War had destroyed a large portion of the entire United States 6 years prior to that. So the World's Columbian Exposition was a proverbial rising from the ashes, much to the pride of many Chicagoans. More than 27 million tickets were sold during the 6 months that the fair was up and running on the southeast side of Chicago. That accounts for about a third of the entire US population that year, not to mention participants from 46 other countries. Admission was a steep 50 cents, which is about $12 in today's American dollar. Some were so desperate to visit that they mortgaged their homes to travel hundreds of miles to see this spectacle of 200 temporary buildings housing 65,000 exhibits.
The Columbian Exposition was a fair that celebrated the 400th anniversary of when Columbus arrived in the New World, though the fair was held 1 year after, in 1893. The creation of the fair included many architects, those being Henry Ives Cobb, Richard Morris Hunt, Charles McKim, George B. Post, and Louis Sullivan. They designed the exposition's building, but they were all under the supervision of Daniel H. Burnham. The fair had many attractions, and one was a big Ferris wheel that was 250 feet tall and could hold 2,160 people fully loaded. It included 36 cars that could carry 60 people each and attracted thousands of people. Chicago got a nickname, the White City, after the exposition. The vast number of white buildings everywhere and the breathtaking architecture was the reason why. The majority of the buildings in the fair were intended to be temporary, but there was one that stayed after the end of the exposition and one that was redesigned. The building that remained was the Palace of Fine Arts, which is now the Museum of Science and Industry, and the building that was relocated was called the Field Columbian Museum, and today is known as the Field Museum in Chicago. The Museum of Science and Industry is the largest science museum in the Western Hemisphere and is home to more than 35,000 artifacts. Since the opening in 1933, more than 180 million guests from around the world have visited the museum. The exhibits include a mirror maze that highlight the mathematical numbers, a science storm, space centers, and the only German U-boat in the United States. This building was the one that remained after the Columbian Exposition. The Field Museum was primarily an outgrowth of the World Columbian Exposition held in Chicago in 1893. The museum provides artifacts and exhibits that include a panoramic projection of ocean life 500 million years ago to the exquisite replicas of ancient Mayan ceramics. Science and research have helped the museum reach a high standard with exhibits and artifacts that impresses all viewers. Burnham Park was a dedication to Daniel Burnham and his envision of the Chicago city. It includes his ideas of a south lakefront park with a series of man-made islands, linear boating harbor, beaches, meadows, and playfields. The dedication goes along with his city plans by implementing parks and meadows where community can come together.